Today, our board president will give us an update on the future of village restaurants and the Tenacity Rebuild project. We'll take a peek into the reserve fund and explore a few hot topics. It's coming right now, so stay tuned. Welcome, Marty, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Carla. Glad to be here.
So we've just completed the third quarter, and one of the top priorities remains the Tenacity Rebuild project. A town hall meeting was held on September 28th, during which the CEO and the Rebuild Committee presented updated building design recommendations, which reflect the direction of the POA Board. What's the latest and what's next?
So you first mentioned the direction of the POA Board. So back in early August, I'm going to say, the Tenacity Rebuild Committee gave two different proposals to the board. One without moving the ninth green and one with moving the ninth green. So after that, the board basically issued a directive or directions from us saying we'd like to see four things. One is, because the number of parking spaces available without moving the ninth green was over 200, we felt that that should be an ample number. That's, we're at 229 now with the latest proposal, and so that's over 100 more than what we had before. Tellico has 165, so it's 64 more than that. So we just felt like that should work. Then we wouldn't have to make the investment of moving the ninth green, which could have been upwards of $500,000 to $1 million. Wow. So that was one of the directives. The other one was, if we look at the old Tenacity, what were the issues with it? So we needed a larger kitchen, larger dining area, larger bar area. So those were the things that we needed. And so we wanted the team to be sure they focused on that. So another item is, due to the space limitations on the peninsula, it's really not the right place to be the area for more meeting spaces, a golf simulator, an indoor practice putting green, things like that. So we can have those if it fits and the parking will support it, but initially we just said no to that stuff. Let's just concentrate on the priorities. And then the final thing was a budget target. So we came up with a budget target of $7 million, and we got that based on what we anticipate the square footage cost to be to build a new location, plus some additional funds for parking lot and landscaping.
So as I mentioned before, there was a town hall the end of September where we talked about that. There were drawings posted, there's slides that you can see, and that was videoed and it was live streamed, but it's also videoed, so you can see it by going to the Tellico Village Network YouTube channel, and under live, you'll find that video for the town hall. And a link to that is in the description of this video if you're watching online. So next question, what's next?
So for everybody that saw it, I think it could be a beautiful building. I mean, it looks really impressive. Hopefully it will fit within our budget. So the next thing to do is to take it out to bid to a construction company. So that's what we're doing now. We're putting the bid package together, and we'll be sending that out shortly. And the big thing here is cost is still not determined, so nothing has been approved by the board. So once we get information back from the bids, we'll be to a point where we can actually have board approval to proceed with construction, because we should have pretty good numbers.
Great, great. And I recall from the town hall we were talking about there is some flex space built into the golf part of the building. So even though we're not trying to solve all the sins of the past by putting meeting space in and golf simulators, there is some flex space built in that we will have options for the future on how we want to develop that, correct?
And that's what I like about this layout, because yes, we could potentially have room for more things like meetings, more outdoor type things, and it's all going to be driven by the parking, right? I mean, even though we have over 100 more, what can we realistically accommodate? What can the staff serve?
Right.
So a lot of those things, and it'll just be one of those things that'll evolve over time.
Another subject that the board has been talking about extensively is our food service contract, which implies the Tellico Village restaurants, right? So that includes the future Tenacity Bar and Grill, the Blue Heron Yacht Club, the Tokwa Sports Bar and Grill, and the Kahiti Pub and Grill. So, well, tell us a little bit about the journey the board took that led us to this point and what you ultimately decided.
What the board did this year, and the POA staff, is took food services out to bid. So as you know, AWE's been providing food services for the village for several years now and doing a good job. But we just thought it was one of those things that we should take out to bid and see, okay, how does the price that we're paying AWE compare to what we could get on the market? And then also consider bringing it in-house. So we sent the bid package out to 7 different vendors. We got 3 to respond. One of those was AWE. And we put a committee together consisting of John Orr, who's on the board, Mike Braddock, who's on the Finance Advisory Committee, Mitzi Lane, and Jeff DeGula. And they reviewed the 3 bids and also did an extensive review of what it would take to bring it in-house. And they came back and recommended that we bring it in-house. So the board approved that. So now we're on our way to figure out how we're going to do that. And the big thing there is we're hiring Skylar McClurkin. So he's been basically running the show for AWE over the past several years anyway. So he understands the village, he understands the challenges. He knows, or all the employees know him. So it should be a very smooth transition. And the other thing we're going to do is put together a food services advisory committee. And what we really like is for that to be comprised of people that have restaurant experience. That can help Skylar look at training programs, look at how we do things to really get off on the right foot. So that'll be effective the first of the year, 2024.
January 1.
Yes.
And if the name Skylar McClurkin sounds familiar to our viewers, that's because many of our property owners already know him, as he has served as the manager of the yacht club for the past several years, right?
Yes, and he has been managing the other, or overseeing anyway, the other restaurants that AWE has under its control as well.
So it sounds like that'll be a natural transition for him to go into that role as general manager. Well, let's move on. Let's move on to hot topics. So one of the hot topics in the village lately has been short-term rentals. So of course, Q3 has been no exception to the rule, so no shortage of hot topics, but short-term rentals kind of rises to the top. So tell us about that.
So short-term rentals, boy, it's a hot topic across the country. With Airbnb and VRBO and others, there's a lot of communities that are dealing with this. And we're starting to see that more here as well. So the question becomes, what can we do, if anything? And so, according to our governing documents, people can rent out their homes, and there's really no restrictions. In order to put something in that would be more restrictive, we'd have to change those governing documents, which would require a 2/3 vote of all of our property owners. So what we've done is we've put together a committee, and Bob Brunetti's heading that up, and going to look at what they think our options are and then come back with a recommendation for the board.
Okay, great. Next one is library funding. The board also made a decision regarding the POA's participation in funding for the Tellico Village Library.
This has been a hot topic among the board, you know, ever since I've been on the board, and probably even before that, so 4 years or more, because the board cannot donate other people's money. We cannot donate property owners' money, and whether that be to a charitable organization or to a government entity, and the library falls into that. So even though it was a very tough decision, and we've all valued the library, we just can't do that. So really, what needs to happen is more residents or more property owners just need to step up and make personal donations. And one of the things that the POA staff has offered up is, hey, potentially we could run a golf tournament to help them raise money. So there are options, and we're in communication, not we, but the POA staff is in communication with the library, and just to stay on top of it and see what can we do to help them survive and really be an asset to the community.
And finally, the most recent ACC Blue Book revisions and what they mean to us as property owners.
So we talked about this last quarter, if you recall. So really the changes to the Blue Book, we're adding a few more restrictions, and the ones that came up were the ones that hit the ACC and the POA staff the most often. So the complaints that they're getting from property owners regarding neighbors or people on their street or whatever. So in that regard, the Blue Book really didn't change much. What was added though was a fining structure. So part of the problem in the past was we had really no teeth, no good enforcement mechanism other than sending them a note and say, please take care of this. The POA really couldn't do much more than that. So the hope is that by implementing a fining structure, we'll be able to basically get people to comply with the rules that they signed up for when they moved here in the first place, and keep this place looking good for people that want to sell their homes and people just want to live here and see the place looking good.
Great. All right, well, you're off the hot seat now, enough with hot topics, but we do have some other topics to discuss, and these kind of affect daily life around the village. So one of these is regarding signs and banners on Highway 444. What can you tell us about that?
TDOT came through and said, look, we cannot put signs or banners in the right-of-way along 444. So they went through and they removed anything that's in their right-of-way. And they'll leave them lay there for people to claim, but if they don't claim them within 5 days, then they're going to pick them up and get rid of them. So that's really the big thing with that topic.
So that's not a POA requirement, that's a TDOT requirement,
That's
correct?
correct, yes.
Because that is the state highway,
yes.
as we remember. So also, while we're driving around the village, we'll start to notice a few changes over the next couple of years. I'm referring to traffic signal lights and traffic circles or roundabouts. What changes can we expect? Where will they be and when?
First one is from Monroe County. So it's at the intersection of 72 and Niles Ferry. And the county mayor, Mitch Ingram, advised us that it has been approved and funded to put a traffic light there. So that'll be nice.
Excellent.
For people that traverse that. And then in Loudoun County, 3 different ones that Mayor Buddy Bradshaw made us aware of is basically the intersection of 444, Mealacqua Road, and Chio Drive has been approved to get a roundabout. And that's been funded as well. Then also a traffic circle at Sequoia, the Yacht Club Road, and a traffic light at 444 and 72. Now, those last 2 have not been funded, but they've been approved. And even the ones that are funded, we don't really have a timeline yet. Like you just said in the opening, it could be a couple years.
Right.
So we'll just keep people posted as things get more defined.
Okay. And recently, we've received guidance regarding swimming in the lake, specifically at Tugaloo Family Park after a significant rain event or storm. What can you tell us about that?
That really has been something that the EPA has posted years ago. Any public waterway or any public lake or even beaches, that if you get a heavy rain, it's advisable not to go in the water for at least 48 hours afterwards. That's because of the contaminants in and around the area can get washed in, and people could get sick from that. So what the POA decided to do is just post some signs at Tugaloo Beach reminding people of the same thing.
All right, great.
Just a health.
Just a safety, yep.
Yes.
Perfect. So the board and COO Mitzi Lane had been looking into covered RV and boat storage for the village. What's the status of that?
So Mitzi reported in the last board meeting that there is a private party putting up an RV storage lot close to the library. So because that's going to be happening, we basically decided to just sit tight for now as far as that goes. And nothing is really happening on the boat storage thing yet beyond adding as many boat slips as we can per the the TVA approval when this whole area was developed in the first place.
Okay, great. Well, it doesn't get more convenient for Tellico Village property owners than right there next to the library. So hopefully that will work out well for people. And we've talked before about the last topic around the village, and that's recycling. What can you tell our viewers about progress on receptacles being placed in the village for recycling?
The latest that I've heard on that is that needs to be approved by the mayor and thus the county commissioners. So until that happens, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So we're waiting
we're in a
anxiously
holding pattern.
to hear if they will pass that through the budget, because they've got to buy the bins. And that's several $1,000s as I understand it.
Right.
So there again, sit tight and wait. And even though it was announced that we were going to do it, it sounds like there's more approvals that have to take place first.
Well, I said you were off the hot seat, but folks are always interested in village finances. So we are currently in what we fondly call budget season, when the budget is being determined for 2024. And during this process, one of the things the board must consider is our overall financial shape, and our reserve fund is a big part of that. One question villagers have asked recently is for clarification of a recommendation from the reserve fund study, which was, it is recommended for the POA to contribute $8 to $10 million per year to the reserve fund. Will you please give a brief explanation of exactly what that looks like, how it's impacted by annual spending, and the ultimate goal for our reserve balances?
First of all, let me just give an overview of where we stand today. I mean, we have just over $18 million in our reserves today, which is quite an accomplishment, because just 4 years ago, after we completed TOQA, it was like $1 million or less. You were on the board then, so you remember that. So our focus the last 3-4 years has been to get our reserve balances back up. And I think we as a community have done a really good job of that. So on top of that 18 million, we have another 2 million in operating cash. So $20 million. Now, 4 million of that is the insurance money we got for Tenacity, so it's earmarked for that. So when we say, or when the Finance Advisory Committee said, hey, we want to put $8 to $10 million per year into reserves, that doesn't mean grow reserves by that much. That means contribute to reserves that much. And in the interim, we're also pooling money out to pay for capital items, ongoing maintenance, things like that.
Right.
So there is a reserve forecast that the Finance Committee's put together, and it's part of the budget process that shows over the next 5 years, how do we see that for the reserve balance either growing or going down as we make investments. We've got some huge investments coming up. As we've talked about before, we've got close to $20 million in water and sewer projects that we need to do. The roads take $1 million to $1.5 million a year.
Right.
And now we've got Tenacity on top of that. You know, yeah, we have $4 million in reserves, but I said earlier our target is $7 million. So if that's $7 million or $8 million, we have to come up with that incremental over $4 million that the insurance is going to cover. So that doesn't necessarily, it all comes from reserves. That'll be part of figuring out how do we finance those different projects. You know, we might end up saying it makes sense to borrow some money. So we'll be working, the board and the POA staff will be working very closely with the Finance Committee to say, okay, how best do we address each of these investments that we need to make? Right.
As a property owner too, I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate that, because just the financial health of our village is so important for the future. And so I know that that's diligent work and that you guys have to stay on top of that. So it's really good for the health of our village finances.
You know, and that's a very good point. We've got the board elections coming up again this year, and we've got two people, long-standing members that won't be coming back because they're term limited. That's Rick Blau and Pat White. So I tell you, a lot of the criteria you look for in people coming onto the board are those that have good financial savvy, because we're running a business here.
Right.
And the more good minds that you have looking at how we're spending our money and how we are best managing our money, that's what we as all property owners want.
And the better off we'll be in the long run.
Definitely.
So, so the budget, which is kind of hand in hand with this reserve fund talk, is you guys are, as I said, in budget season now. You've had some meetings with the Finance Advisory Committee, and the department heads have been presenting their budgets to you. There will be a public meeting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the public meeting is going to be delayed. And the primary reason for that is, we talked earlier about bringing food services in-house. So there's another whole section of the budget that's got to be created from scratch. So a lot of work to do. We got a new CFO this year. So a lot of things have kind of played into that's kind of pushed the budget schedule out a little bit. So rather than having the public meetings on the budget, I think they were scheduled for October 9th through the 13th. The plan now is to have that on November 8th. So the format's going to be a little bit different this year. So rather than each of the directors presenting their portion of the budget, Chet and our new CFO, Judy Bedford, will be presenting the whole budget. We think that that'll be a lot more streamlined, should take less time, go over the highlights. We don't really need to go into all of the nitty-gritty detail. That'll still be available for those that want to look at it. It'll be available on the website. But for the budget review meeting, we're going to do it that way. And the reason we're doing that, if we look at how corporations do budgets, that's how they do it too. And not that we think we need to be a corporation, but I think it'll be more efficient use of everybody's time. We have a finance committee that has basically gone through this budget, you know, very, very closely, and those are financial experts. And between them and the board, and then a review with the property owners, we think that that'll be a good approach.
Okay, that's terrific. And that's coming up November 8th, so we'll be sure and watch our telegrams and to find out exactly what time. And will that be on the 5th floor of the Yacht Club?
Yes.
As well. Okay.
Yes.
You know, that's it for our third quarter topics. So for this edition of the POA Board Update. So Marty, as always, thank you for all your hard work. Please send our thanks to the rest of the board, and we'll see you next time.
Will do, and thank you.
All right. It's that time of year in Tellico Village. Time to select 2 new representatives for our POA board. The current board has certified 5 candidates for this year's election. You see them there on your screen. There are no incumbents, as the outgoing members, Pat White and Rick Blau, are term limited. So there will be 2 new members for the 3-year term beginning in 2024. A POA Board Candidates Forum will be hosted by the Tellico Village HOA at the Community Church on October 12th at 4 p.m. Election materials will then be mailed out to all property owners, and voting will open the end of October. Please watch your telegram or visit the TVPOA website for more information about when and how to vote. And most importantly, vote. So thank you for tuning in to your POA Board Update. And remember, you can watch the live stream of board meetings as they happen or on demand later. Just visit the TVN YouTube channel under Live, and you will find videos of past board meetings. Be sure to watch us again next quarter for more timely topics. As always, thank you for watching Tellico Village Network.